Okay, good morning everybody. How's everyone doing, especially with that time change? Yeah. Well, I'm so happy to see you all here as everybody's taking their seats. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Clarke Wolfe, not related to Meow Wolfe, but I'm really excited to be here and to talk to the team behind Origin Story. So give them a round of applause just to start it off. So before we get into questions and things like that, we've got a great big group today. So I wanted everybody, if you don't mind, to please introduce yourself and sort of tell the audience how you relate to Meow Wolfe and to the film. And your microphone, everybody should have a mic.
I'll go first. I'm Morgan Capps. I'm a director with this beautiful woman right here, my directing partner. And my relationship to Meow Wolfe is that it's why I stayed in Santa Fe and stuck around, and having the opportunity to work on the documentary was just this incredible gift. And that's sort of my relationship. I love him.
I'm Jillian Spitzmiller, and I'm not an official Meow Wolfer. I'm a filmmaker who came in to work on the project.
I'm Kadlubek. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Meow Wolfe. I've been working with the groups for 10 years now, since we started. And I mostly do fundraising and marketing and talking and traveling. Stuff like that. Yeah, I mainly exist in these, like, I don't know, very amorphous realms of thought these days. Barely have much like concrete capabilities. Motivate others with like some amount of spiritual magic that is like becoming less and less relevant with every passing day.
That was great, Vince. I'm Emily Montoya. I am also one of the co-founders, and I do art direction, graphic design, and merchandise stuff. I designed Snaggy, the mascot. Yeah.
I'm Matt, also co-founder. Man, these mics are hot.
We got a lot of them up here.
Current title, which I share with her, just Chief Creative Officer. I work with art direction team, oversee large groups of people. I mainly work with fabrication. It's me.
I'm Caity Kennedy. I'm also a co-founder, also Chief Creative Officer, also an art director, and I oversee the art department.
I'm Corvas, Brinkerhoff, also a co-founder. I started with Meow Wolfe 10 years ago as an artist, making things. Now I make spreadsheets and emails, mostly.
They're beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm also the Chief Technology Officer and help head up the tech side of what we do.
I'm Iani, Chief Operating Officer, co-founder. Yeah, Meow Wolfe is the reason that I stayed in Santa Fe too. And there's a thing in the film where somebody's talking about the sign. I think it's you, the very first Meow Wolfe sign that kind of looked like maybe it was like a kindergarten, and you were wondering what kinds of people it was going to attract. And I was one of those people that it attracted.
You're like the first person that it attracted.
What? Was I the first person?
You were like the first person that it attracted.
Yeah, I was in Santa Fe for like 4 months. I was like, where are all the young people? And I saw this kindergarten sign. That's not true. I saw a bunch of you guys smoking cigarettes out front. So that was like a month after you rented the building. Yeah. Now I do like operations stuff, which is like a catch-all term for like solving problems as they come up, and organizational structure, boring stuff. That's what I do now, but it's also fun. Benji.
That sign was really cute.
My name is Benji, and man, I'm also a co-founder, and I used to do art, and I still do every day. And I think that's pretty cool. Nothing's changed in that regard, except pretty much mostly I work now in like holding the whole thing together, except through unseen esoteric ritual that gets pretty intense. And I can tell you about it in metaphors only. That's about it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad we have this big team here. Feedback on our mics or not. It's great to have everybody up here. I wanted to start by asking Morgan and Jillian. So with this film, like one of the things, okay, so I live in Los Angeles. I am very familiar with the term origin story. I think with the, you know, the onslaught of like superhero movies, we hear that term a lot. But what I love about this movie having the subtitle of origin story, like I feel like we really got to know you guys and really went down this path. And so I want for you to, you know, can you talk a little bit about getting close to this team so that you guys were able to have such access? Because this is such a personal story, and I know how much obviously it means to you all individually, but for us as the audience, like when I was meeting you guys yesterday, I was like, I know your story and your story and your story. So can you guys talk a little bit about building that trust and coming into the group, but also getting to be so honest?
Well, that was really a gift, the honesty and the transparency that everybody gave us in their interviews. But for me, getting to know the group, I started out actually as a volunteer on the House of Eternal Return. I moved to Santa Fe to work on a different film, and like Sean, I was like, where are the young people at? And I was introduced to Meow Wolfe, and so, you know, as a documentarian, I've been like observing them and trying to understand them since that moment, and make sense of them, and, you know, asking people, what's so-and-so like, you know, before I even knew I was gonna get to work on this film. So just kind of being around for a while, I think people got familiar to my face, and they're like, all right, well, you know, let you, you know, be in our presence, and, you know, we'll give. They're very generous with what they gave of themselves, and that made a huge difference.
And how about you, Jillian?
I think Morgan had done a lot of that groundwork, you know, just in being at the House of Eternal Return, sticking things to the wall. I mean, that's how everybody is bonded most deeply. So I was a beneficiary of that prior relationship that she had with everyone. But too, like when we went and filmed, it's very casual. It's like the two of us or one more person, or, you know, very small footprint. And we just try to be there and be respectful and be open ourselves, you know.
And for the Meow Wolfe team, well, I wanted to ask for our audience, how many of you guys are creatives? You know, yeah, okay, good. So the reason I ask is because when I was watching the film, I related to this so much. And I am not a visual artist, but I produce theater, or like, you know, as an actor or whatever. The personality types and the struggle to, you know, be financially sustainable, but also to be creative, like you guys were saying, is very, very relatable. And so for y'all, I wanted to ask, you know, there's so much mystery that surrounds Meow Wolfe, and so how did you guys come to decide to say, okay, yeah, we will let cameras into our lives and our story and our art and all of that? And whoever wants to start and feels comfortable starting, please.
We talk all the time. People are asking us about what we're doing. We talk amongst ourselves. We are constantly discussing what we're doing. So discussing it in front of a camera was just a tiny bit more awkward, but not really unfamiliar. We have to talk about this constantly because it's such a behemoth and such a crazy thing to maneuver and figure out. The like creative and the social and the worm of it needs conversation. So
we've also just had we've had cameras documenting this since like the very first day, you know, almost actually literally the very first day that we moved into the space we were documenting. And I think that unlike other sort of artists in that maybe you can compare us to, or of like this sort of new generation of pop art? Like, we don't care, we don't want to, we're not like secretive, we're not trying to be secretive, we're actually doing the opposite. We're trying to be very much like out there in the world, like much more on like, sort of a Warhol, tip like that, and just being like, almost like obnoxiously, so we film everything, and we put everything out there, and we take every interview that we could ever get, and we're like, we all kind of love the spotlight. Me and Matt especially.
Yeah.
Well, another thing I wanted to bring up was the idea of radical inclusivity, which is, I think you guys touch on a lot in the film, and I personally love, because I think no matter if you love the spotlight or are not comfortable with it, there's always a part of us, like, I know it kept coming up in the film, whenever a new project is going to be put out there, it's like, oh my god, is this actually good? Does this suck? Is this stupid? Should I even be doing this? I think that artists and creative people kind of struggle with those things all the time. So, I don't know, can you guys talk a little bit about the concept of radical inclusivity and why that is so important to what you do, not only as a group of people, but like as artists as well?
That's a term that was used in the TED Talk that I did, and then I think we've like since then kind of modified like from radical inclusivity to being radically accepting, because like inclusivity is something that we actually need to work on. Inclusivity is like a term now, realizing inclusivity is a term that takes there's an amount of initiative necessary for inclusivity. You can't just sit back and let inclusivity happen. You can sit back and let accepting happen. We're very accepting. Anybody can walk in the door and we are like, yep, like cool, you're part of this. But we don't actively, we haven't, we're doing a lot better job now, but we haven't in the past actively gone out to be inclusive. Like we haven't done because it just hasn't been part of our thought process. And that whole thing is like shifting. So we're hoping to become radically inclusive through our like actions, our initiatives, but that radical acceptance, I mean, I just think it's just I don't know if anybody wants to talk about that sort of radical acceptance and where that comes from.
Yeah, I'll say a few things. Yeah. That's good. I totally agree, Vince. I think that's right. Like the active reaching out to include is something that we're now working on and like trying to improve. But in the early days, I think part of the reason why the installations and the practice of creating these immersive environments was what we kind of cohered around. I think that the reason for that is because it was world building, and when you build worlds, you need lots of different things to go into those worlds. You need all these different perspectives, and at the heart of like the initial impetus for Meow Wolfe was a desire to have community and to come together and have a space that didn't exist in Santa Fe, where we could be expressive and we could be weird and we could do whatever. And there was just a lot of people hanging around, like everybody kind of flocked to it. People who had never made stuff before came there, artists, writers, musicians, and I think that the installations like provided this context for us to include all of those perspectives in one thing that started to cohere as a world, and that was kind of exciting to us. We saw that happen with Matt and Quinn's show, like the very first show. We saw this kind of world being created, and I think we were inspired by that activity, and that sort of required and also propelled this sort of need for, it required community, and it also propelled us into community. So creating that sense of community where there was none was a big part of why like we were so accepting at that time. Like anybody could come and do whatever, and we needed that. It made it more rich, it made it more exciting.
I'd say arguably a lot of us are in Meow Wolfe out of a desire for self-determination, wanting to do whatever we want and not wanting to have to ask for permission to do so, but also wanting to do so with kindness. And so if we want to do whatever we want, how can we tell anyone else not to do whatever they want?
Benji, did you want to add anything? It looked like you had...
People pretty much said everything. I mean, like that kind of concept reached an apex at, we talk about everybody only in the movie, because that was like one of the shows that we did twice that was just a completely unjuried, anybody could bring anything that they had for like a day. It was like a whole day of just like put anything that you bring onto the walls or into the middle of the room and it will go up in the show, which was great and completely real awful. There's that golden piece called Mystic Palette. Ooh, somebody brought in a palette, just like a normal wooden palette that had a little bit of gold leaf on it that was kind of ripped off. And it just was titled Mystic Palette. It's become like a beautiful gauge to which we anchor a lot of, thought about art since.
Sorry, Vince, did you want to add anything?
I was just gonna say, you can't understate like how broke we were. Also, just like, broke. Like, we did not have any money. We all worked in food delivery or restaurant work or hotels.
Or no job.
What was that?
Or no job.
Or no job. Yeah. It was like, and so for the first 7 or 8 years, nobody got paid ever, and it was all volunteer. So just that alone makes it really hard to say no. When people walk in and say they want to help, you're like, okay.
It's just practically pooling resources.
It's resources, totally.
For Morgan and Jillian, there is such a distinct visual style to this film. There's a combination of, art footage, but also animation, and there's music, and there's all different kinds of art coming together to make this documentary. Can you talk about Can you talk about finding the people to sort of build those animations or find that music and putting that visual style together?
Well, a lot of it stemmed from the materials we got from the group, and the Benji and Emily videos were insanely inspiring. Last night I've seen that Ramona bit 300 times, and I loved it the most last night. I just bow down to you.
She literally laughs every time she watches it. Never seen her not like.
Last night was especially great. Anyway, so that kind of stuff. You can't underestimate how wonderful that is, that you can draw from the creativity that already exists from this group and the materials that they already had, and just those sort of crazy, gritty, archival things that they had made. So that was an incredible jumping off point for us. And plus all the different video formats all over the years, and all that was just like, we couldn't help but make a really visually layered piece, but we're intentionally going for maximalism to echo, what they've been doing and make it sort of a punk rock movie experience, or punk art movie experience. The animation is done by Brad Wolfe, who is now on the Meow Wolfe team, and I've known him for many years, and he's just extraordinary. And Alec Brown did the motion graphics. Alessandra Dobrin-Kalsit is our editor. She's sitting there in the front row, and she has an incredible talent at just mishmashing all of this into something coherent too. So she was a huge part of the tapestry that the film is. And Morgan was really on the music trail, so let's speak about that.
Yeah, well, again, just to echo Jilann, we were so lucky to have other people's art to work with, throughout the whole thing. And it was really, we gathered all of these materials. You can see there are 3 different interview settings. So we had 3 different interviews we were working with, and it was a lot to bring together, but the team was a huge part of that. Alessandra, Brad, Alec, Christina, everybody, kind of worked to help make sense of this huge, terrifying mess of footage and music and all of this stuff. It was terrifying, but, and again, today Sean was like, oh, have you seen that video from Biome where I'm like, spring break Sean, and I just want to push him really hard, because that would be in the
I thought you had that.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that.
Winter break Sean is even better than Winter break Sean gets really dark.
Okay, so Vince, you touched on just now saying that it was a good 7+ years before anybody really got paid, right? House of Eternal Return is, you know, I was telling some of you guys yesterday, like, I feel like this is a thing that a lot of people have heard about, even if you haven't heard about it. My boyfriend was telling me about it because his mom lives in Santa Fe, and I put 2 and 2 together when this opportunity came around, and I was like, that's so cool that, like, maybe, I think it was even on our first date, he was like, yeah, my mom lives in Santa Fe, there's a bunch of cool art things. Hey, have you heard about this house? And it was like, wow, that is so awesome. So, I say that all to say, this is expanding, it's growing. Like, you know, can you talk about, there's a really, I don't want to spoil it, or I don't want to give anything away for people who haven't seen the film, but there's a point where going to George R.R. Martin and going to David's family to make the money part really happen. Like, can you take us back a little bit to that moment of, okay, this is about to happen, and then now sitting here at South by Southwest with a documentary and knowing that House of Eternal Return is successful?
There was a moment where we were all kind of talking about the show and looking at the bowling alley drawing. This is before George existed, before any money existed, and we were looking at the bowling alley drawings and trying to, like, if we had this building, what would we do with it? And we had a meeting, and the valley, you know, the, like, this valley, uncanny valley between, like, where we were as a collective and where we needed to be in order to make this a reality. It was like, it was so great that nobody in the group could really believe that it was possible. Like, it was just impossible. And I got so enraged. I got enraged at, like, a really kind of insane level, like, spirited level, like, and I just fucking yelled at everybody and was like, fuck all you guys, I don't need you guys, you need me, I'm out. Like, I got so pissed off, and it was like this energy in the room, just like, bah, and I felt super embarrassed by that moment. The frustration I was feeling was, like, hearing people's doubts and knowing those doubts were so true, and being like, but it has to be possible, like, it has to be possible, and I just, like, expressed it in such an angry and shitty way to everybody, and then dealt with it the next day and, like, apologized, and we talked. But at that point it just kind of felt like, well, this just has to happen, like, some sort of, like, really intense inner wall, you know, got broken down in that moment that made a clearing of, and then it was just like, okay, well, what do we have to do? It's just one step at a time, you know, just one step at a time. It's like very much like climbing, I'm talking like like climbing a mountain, you know, you're starting at the bottom, you see this huge mountain in the distance, like, you're not climbing that mountain now, like, you're actually just taking steps towards the base of it, and then you're taking steps up it, and then you're eventually on the top, but you're not, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it is that one step at a time perspective that is necessary.
Yeah, totally. It's like there's so much fear involved in that moment in the beginning when we're, like, you know, getting to that point when we're going to sign the documents to say who is going to be, like, legally involved in, like, on the name of the LLC, like, when we're starting, you know, this House of Eternal Return project. And I was terrified, and I was, like, on the border, like, am I gonna do this? Am I not gonna do this? And then I kind of, like, I realized that I was more terrified of what would happen if I didn't join in and, like, follow this dream and be part of this project, you know, so, yeah.
It's scary. It's really, you know, one of the things I noticed when I was watching the film was that Meow Wolfe kind of feels like a person, like growing up and becoming, you know what I mean? Like, in a good way. I mean, does that make sense to you guys at all?
Yeah, we're like 15. We're like a 15-year-old.
You're a very successful 15-year-old.
The 15-year-old beast.
Yeah. But I thought that was really, really cool. The idea of, like, sort of that Meow Wolfe grows and changes and evolves and still maintains the spirit of how it started. I know Caity I think it was Caity in the film said it's important that we keep making things that are weird. And I think that's, yeah, it's like a fuck yeah kind of thing. Can you guys talk about that? And because I know, I'm sorry, I'm being a nerd, but I wrote down some of these lines. I want to print them on T-shirts. They're like so inspiring and motivational. But the idea of the culture being important, the most important thing. But now this is a huge business, and so, like, does anybody have anything that they want to say about that?
I would just say that I think the movie did something really amazing, even reminding us our own culture. It's something that we talk about constantly. It's one of our biggest concerns is, like, how do we maintain the culture at the same time as, like, fix the things that we should make better and, like, don't fix the things that need to be broken in order to like maintain. And watching the movie, watching ourselves in just different moments, different like size of goals, but going through all the same things that we're going through now, just on a different scale, was really heartening. It's like, that's okay, we're still doing exactly the same thing. And one of the things that is probably the biggest question is, in the past, bringing people into the culture has just been like, okay, like, welcome, here are 5 people who are already working on this, just join them and like, you'll be fine. And it's been this like, very like exponential growth thing, but now we're growing so fast that a lot of us don't even know tons of people in the company. And I think that if we can give them this movie to watch, then it's weird, and we should probably like have a like how to make a taco training video in there too or something. But like to have this like cultural nugget to hand over and can explain faster and better than any of us who've lived it probably can.
I'm really excited. I think this movie's gonna save us so much time. Like we're constantly telling this story, and at least if nothing else, we have like the world's best like employee onboarding video. No, I mean, you guys did such a brilliant job. Yeah, really did.
Yeah, I'll say something to that. We internally, like you said, we talk to ourselves and to the people that are now coming into Meow Wolfe about preserving that culture and how it is kind of our top priority. And I think we talk so much for the reason because that culture is what got us to where we are right now. And we talk that culture is what is going to propel us into the future, and it needs to remain authentic. And what's seeing the film and looking back at all of those years and seeing ourselves and seeing myself, it's sort of put in the perspective of, you know, why saving that culture is important. And I had a sort of different idea about it, because nowadays, our reality has changed. My reality has changed. I no longer am that feral guy, like Chris said, so much anymore, that is just running around and making art.
You were pretty feral last night.
Yeah,
not that different, really.
Not that different.
We're just a feral spreadsheet maker now.
Yeah, you know, we sit in meetings all day and we talk legal talk, business talk. We talk about our day-to-day reality is much different than it was, and I think preserving that culture is important so we as individuals remain authentic. Not so much that even Meow Wolfe as a whole remains authentic, but me as a person can remain true to where I really come from as my life changes. That is what this sort of movie did for me, is who am I involved in Meow Wolfe, where we came from, and that culture is my culture as an individual inside of myself, and that's, I think, that's true of all of us. And as we become very different people in the face of Meow Wolfe and what we're doing, like, we need to stay true to ourselves. That's what it did for me.
That's awesome. Okay, so, and I want to save a little bit of time for questions if anybody has any questions, so start thinking if you haven't been already. But, okay, so now here we are, and boy, okay, before we get to the expansion, right, and the different locations, I felt like this was a really important thing to bring up, especially, you know, at this festival that is supposed to be about art and different kinds of art. There's a line in the movie, I think it's Vince, says we're spending $2.5 million a month on artist pay. That was so cool. Like, that is so awesome because you guys make the point, and it's true, I'm sure everyone sitting in this room knows, like, artists are treated like they are disposable. Like, oh, well, they'll always need that work. They'll always need, you know, so they'll come back and they'll do it for less, and that is a mindset that one could have. And I just wanted to bring attention to that point specifically here, that how great that is. And I think it's exactly what you're talking about, like, maintaining the importance of art to yourselves. So I guess, I mean, if anybody wants to say anything, please feel free, but I just wanted to say to you guys that I was so inspired and, like, really, it made me feel good.
Thank you. When we started, the very first meeting we had, 7 years after we started, the first meeting we had to determine the business, we all sat in a room and asked ourselves, if we're going to start a business version of Meow Wolfe, why would we do it? And the top two reasons, one was to make money, and then the other one was to provide resources and opportunity for artists. And then we flipped those and said, okay, we like those two things, because you don't start a business unless you want to make money, but let's flip those. So actually the top priority is provide resources for artists and opportunities, and then make money, you know, and then those two play with each other. And that's like continued to be the thing that we have fought for, you know, throughout this entire process. You know, every decision that we make as a company, big decision, has been driven by that, by artist first. Selling off parts of the company, selling off 25% of the company over the last 14 months in order to raise the capital necessary to pay the salaries that artists deserve, the full-time salaries that artists deserve, and benefit packages, and saying, like, yes, we're willing, and our investors saying, yes, we are also willing to sell off the company in order to bring in the money to make that happen. So it's been like a driving force. You know, we got out of the film last night, and I checked on Twitter. The first person who posted on Twitter tagged us, who was in the audience, and they said, I was just at the Meow Wolfe doc premiere, and it was cringeworthy. I don't know if they realize how bad of look it is that the final scene is champagne glasses clinking and you know, money and legal documents being signed or something like that, you know, kind of referring to that final scene. And I was like, you know what, like, artists deserve to drink champagne too.
Thank you. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Artists aren't supposed to just drink fucking, you know, Pabst. Like, let us drink champagne. You know, like, and it's just this mindset of like, oh my god, how disgusting that the artists are drinking champagne, and that they're like, that they're bringing in money for other artists. Like, how terrible. You know, like, get over it, dudes. Like, we're gonna be in the gutter forever if that's gonna be the way we think about it. You know.
There's a romanticization of struggle and failure that is legitimate. It is part of what it is to be a maker, is being willing to struggle and willing to, like, do it for nothing, but being unwilling to succeed because that you can't deal with that within your own identity will just limit you and limit what you can do for other people.
And the reality is that we struggled for so long that we came to a breaking point where we were about to give up on what we were doing because the struggle was too much. And the face of it now is that we decided to take it to another level where all of us actually, you don't see it because it is covered up by things like signing legal documents and champagne, and it looks a lot more glorious as you grow into the future and we get more recognition. But the fact is that us sitting up here struggle much more now than we did before, and the reason that we continue to do it is because we are actually making progress to be able to serve a community of artists in the world and give them the opportunity that we have been looking for. And the whole reason we ever started working together is because we wanted opportunity to be able to express ourselves to the world. And the fact is that regardless of champagne, like, we struggle harder now, and we will continue to do so because we see what our efforts are doing, which is allowing opportunity for people to be able to express themselves. And we're going to continue to, regardless of
we have two
Twitter posts.
We have two 20-year-olds, we have two 20-year-olds on our staff straight out of high school, arts high school.
They're 21 now.
They're 21 now. When they joined us, they were 19.
18.
Yeah, and they joined.
Keep passing, Vince.
Yeah, they got like straight out of high school, no college, no art school, past high school, and they got $50,000 salary, full benefit jobs.
That's
like that.
not an accurate salary.
But it's close.
It's close, but I just
want.
It's
not Morgan, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, I was just gonna kind of pick up on Caity said it much better, but yeah, I think for us that was really motivating for me, working on this film. It's sort of this idea, and Emily talks about it, Vince talks about it, like, let's take the impossible and make it possible. Let's create the world that we want to live in together. And I was constantly inspired, like, this is my first film. It is an incredible opportunity. I had an incredible directing partner, but it was terrifying, It is this huge responsibility, this huge gift to be true to these amazing people, this amazing story, but what they're attempting, what they've accomplished so far is incredibly motivating, and I think everyone that's involved in it is kind of moved by that, of this, that collective spirit is maintained in, what Sean says, the socialist bent to it, that's like part of, what pushes everybody so hard and to work so hard is kind of that shared vision and that opportunity to change your reality and to not be shy or embarrassed about it. So that was cool.
All right, does anybody have any questions? If not, that's okay, because I could definitely keep talking. Okay, well, if you have any, just raise your hand. All right, so going forward, here we are. We're in Austin. I've heard rumblings that maybe Meow Wolfe is coming to Austin and Denver and Vegas, and so can you share any, like, concrete, is it happening? Can you tell us anything about those future locations?
Vegas and Denver are definitely happening.
Okay.
Those are concrete, and we've announced those projects. The Denver project is going to be like the next evolution of the project in Santa Fe. It's like a almost 100,000 square foot building that we're building in between these crazy highway overpasses in Denver, and it'll have a huge immersive installation in it. And then the Vegas project is part of a kind of experience and like anti-mall kind of entertainment sort of complex, and will be like the anchor in that experience. So these projects are now being like created in collaboration with those communities and with artist communities around the country. We're still working on the opportunity here in Austin, and we're excited about that, and there's some really good leads. We love Austin, and we want to be here, so we're working to make that happen, and hopefully it will. But yeah, I mean, I think like getting back, we were talking about having artists on salary, and one of the things that does is like maybe it eliminates the struggle from the work, but actually when you look at what we're trying to accomplish, there's going to be plenty of struggle because the ambitions are still like huge. These projects are big, and we want to keep doing them and expand like really now it's like expand that opportunity and expand the collaboration to these new cities, and bring in artists who don't have opportunities in those cities to be part of this.
That's great. And I guess to close out, we started by, maybe I've been living in LA for too long, but we started by talking about origin stories. And so I gotta ask about a sequel, right? A franchise potential. But no, can you guys talk about, are there plans to continue? Obviously I have a feeling, cameras are everywhere anyway, that documentation will continue. But have you guys talked at all about, hey, if, would we make another one? Would we want to make another film? Or even a series?
Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo, exactly. Yeah,
That's
we'll
where
do
it's
Electric
going.
Boogaloo.
Well, we've definitely talked about it a lot, actually, and it's kind of a conversation we're still having. This group needs to be continued to document because they're about to go through another completely life-changing, probably group evolving experience, and then it's what happens after that that's just, it's hard for me to comprehend what they're undertaking right now and what the results of that are going to be based on what we've seen and observed about this group. It's going to be insane and amazing and difficult, and people will cry and scream, and they'll love each other really hard, but it's not going to be easy, and there's so much to learn from them still that we will continue. We hope to continue to document them. What comes of that is yet to be seen, but stay tuned.
It's a good tease. Yes, we have a question, Brandy.
I think I might have missed this, but how many people go through on a monthly basis at House Return?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, how many people? What are the numbers?
I don't know. Do you guys want to take this one? 40,000 people a month. Yeah, about 40,000. Yeah, we do 500,000 people a year in the Santa Fe exhibit. So we're hoping to do like 1.25 million in Denver and 1 million in Vegas. So in a couple of years, we'll have like 3 million people pretty much going through our exhibits on an annual basis.
Sean, did you want to add something?
No, those numbers check out.
Okay, good. I'm glad that we confirmed it. Yes.
Question about when I saw the documentary last night, you mentioned a lot of chaos being such like a prominent theme, and it seems to from start to where you are now. I'm wondering like how that has changed or what kind of role chaos has played now that you have more of a business structure.
Yeah, Sean, I wrote this line down. Order is this beautiful thing that allows chaos to exist. That's like, again, t-shirts, and I want them, or a calendar maybe of like monthly reminders, but can you guys,
I said that actually.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Close enough.
In case you guys can't tell, I was frantically writing, trying to make sure that I got it all right, like down. So I apologize. Credit where credit is due. But would you want to take that one? Talk about to answer her question and like the balance.
Yeah, totally. I do think that sums it up pretty well, right? Like having creativity needs a structure to come out of. It needs a life form. It needs a body. It needs time, it needs energy, it needs resources. Like all these things come from structure. So just from a very fundamental level, like I really believe that structure is an essential counterpoint to the explosive force of creativity and chaos. In terms of how things are evolving now, compared to those first few years, it looks a lot more buttoned up. It looks a lot more structured. It absolutely is. But I really am super proud of how we've created these containers for this explosive, chaotic, creative force to express itself within. It's incredibly potent, and the more that we grow and the more resources we get and the more sophisticated we get in our ability to create that structure, the more potent, the more powerful the creativity is that comes out of it.
And I think like somebody once told me that while I was like struggling in the studio once trying to make art, somebody was like, sometimes you just need a filing cabinet to push up against. Like just put a filing cabinet in your studio and push up against it. It's like a really good metaphor for what structure provides. You know, no artist works in a vacuum. Space is cool to us because we can define it with walls and structures. And so I think, you know, I agree with you, Corvas. Like putting structures in place is only going to be able to propel us to be more creative. And I think now the thing that I think about a lot is like, how do we create human structures that really serve that purpose and then serve us as individuals and all the people that we're working with as individuals, and like provide us with opportunities to still connect as people. And I think that's the big challenge of growing to an organization where, you know, not every single one of us knows every other one by first name and knows their, you know, sister's name and their mom's name. Like, we don't have that level of connection with each other, but I think there's an opportunity to continue to kind of grow human structures within the organization.
This chaos and order relationship is not a calm symbiosis. It's a violent integration of the two into it. Like it's constant flux and pressure, and it's, you know, difficult. I wake up thinking that the plane's crashing, and then an hour later realize like we're doing so well, and then an hour later think that the plane's crashing again. And that's what that chaos and order does. It's like it's turbulent.
To quote them, which I often do to their faces, there's something that didn't make it in the film that I love that Vince says, you know, this tension between the chaos and the order is clashed quite a bit in the past, and it's clashing now every day inside each one of us that makes decisions. So they're still carrying that with them every single day, and almost probably intensified now for you guys. So it really is an art form that they've somehow managed to, you know, balance out, you know, to varying degrees. So it's really interesting.
That's great. Yes, Brandy.
Sorry, I have another numbers question. But I think it's interesting when you talk about the growth and it's starting with you, and I wonder how many employees work for Meow Wolfe now, and artists are, you know, employed by the collective.
We have about 300 full-time employees, and 80 of which are at our operating facility, so the Santa Fe facility, that like front desk people and docents and gift shop and the bar, sort of management of that whole facility. So the other 220, I'd say out of that 220, 140 are on the creative side, and 80 are like marketing and accounting and ops and HR and you know, more on the kind of corporate side. So I would say that we have about 140 full-time, just like straight up artists right now.
Yeah, so I wanted to hear a little bit more. You talked about order and chaos, but also the struggle and your resilience. Like, how do you find resilience, like, individually and then collectively, like to be the group, or y'all, you know, how do you hold space?
It's a great question about resilience.
There's no choice but to keep doing it.
Yeah, there's definitely, you know, after so many years of pouring yourself into something, you know, these first 7 years there's no money, and just giving everything you have. It's just, you know, when you have that much time and energy invested in something, you hit a roadblock, you're gonna figure it out. Like, you just gotta keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I think, you know, something that also keeps us going is, like, we've kind of figured out how to, like, by osmosis, get energy from each other. And that has just been this, like, 10-year process of working side by side and, like, getting to the point where you feel like you're gonna pass out, but then you're like, oh, wow, I see Matt doing something really cool. Like, now that gives me the energy to keep working. And I think that's been, like, a really amazing gift that we've been able to give each other, like, as we've developed together over the years.
It's also just a special group. Like, this is the most passionate and ambitious group of people that I've ever met in my life. So it's just like, when you're, like Emily said, when you're constantly around that, and you know, it's like the larger we grow, those are the sorts of people that we're looking for. So we bring in, and it's just a ball of energy, you know, that is it's impossible to, you know, you wake up and you're not in the right mindset. You say, you know, I'm not really feeling it today, and you go in and there's no way to not turn that around when everyone around you is carrying that energy that, you know, that is propelling this thing forward. So it's you know, we're all trapped.
Help me. Well, there's like so many people on the team too. Like so many people that work for Meow Wolfe, like, you know, for so many people who are on the team, it's like we didn't go through a classic application process. So many people, like, this is, you know, this is like this kind of crazy opportunity that people who just haven't been given opportunity in the past, you know, or like this, whether it be the industry or the systems, the gatekeeping systems or whatever, just hit your head against it so much. And then to finally like be in a place where you can get paid to make stuff, you can just fight. You just like, you turn into this like, okay, we're gonna, you know, you just get super motivated. And I've carried this like psychotic chip on my shoulder for years, just like wanting to just like, I don't know. Just because like the opportunity's there, you know, and I felt like the world has like always just been like shutting that opportunity down or something. So now that it's here, you just want to like take over. I feel like crazy like ADHD children just like taking over the world, like with their skateboards and like crazy chains and yeah, that's what it feels like inside my soul. That's what I look like.
Sean, you wanted to say something? It looked like you wanted to say something.
That sounds scary. No, sometimes Kate Russell reminds me to drink water.
Which is also helpful. Well, all right, guys, this has been awesome talking to you guys. The movie is so great, and thank you for letting me be a part of this day. And please give a round of applause for the team in Meow